Hi. This time of year is a special time of year in our family. All Saints' Day is day after tomorrow, November the 1st. Betty and I were engaged on All Saints' Day. I worked at All Saints School for a number of years and All Saints Church, and I was able to baptize our son on All Saints' Day. In more recent years, this week has taken on a larger significance because of my parents' Year's Mind. Year's Mind is a church term that means the anniversary of their death. 12 years ago today, on October the 30th, my father died. And last week we celebrated my mother's Year's Mind on October the 23rd. She now is gone 10 years. In perspective, though, as I thought about this on the 23rd, on Mom's Year's Mind, I read my son Robert's Facebook post. And it was really interesting. Looking back 10 years, you can see a bigger significance in Mom's death than would have been readily apparent. My son reminded me that on the 23rd of October, 10 years ago, he met Maris for the first time. It was a fleeting conversation that happened at a kind of a college career day. But then a couple of years later, when they finally got to the University of Kentucky, they became fast friends. The last semester of their senior year, they started dating, and 2.5 years later, they were married. What I found most interesting about his post was that he recounted his meeting, he recounted his dating, he recounted that had happened 10 years ago on that day, and that he was now with his wife playing with his new puppy, Woody. Here's a picture of Woody. So why does this have special significance? Well, very simply, even though we couldn't see it at the time, and I'll tell you, I wasn't thinking of lots of happy things when I was told that my mother was dying and that by the time we got to the hospital, she'd already passed. But what I couldn't see then was that, especially on this occasion, death had a resurrection to come. The very idea that Robert would meet Maris on the same day that my mother would die, in retrospect, looks a little, well, as a friend of mine would say, a little boogity. But if you think about it long enough, you can see that this most important event in Robert's life and in our life as a family represents a real resurrection on the occasion of the death of my mother. I have lots of people who come to me because they're trying to get over current stresses, because they're grieving something, and for whatever reason, they have trouble seeing beyond today. What I wanted to remind you this All Saints' Day, and this Halloween and All Souls' Day is the day that we remember particularly the death of the faithful departed. What I wanted to remind you is that any given point, life is bigger than we can see. That even though we're unaware of it, God is working things in our life that are more pleasant, more desirable, more beautiful than we could ever imagine, much less pray for. So if you're stuck in one of those occasions where you're having trouble seeing beyond the grief of today, remember things like every death has a resurrection, even though we can't see it. This is the promise of the gospel. And 10 years after, my sadness at my mother's death is tempered by the fact that that was the day that Robert met Maris, and from that, miracles and love has sprung in a way that my mother is sitting back and enjoying in the kingdom of heaven with her husband, with whom she enjoyed 53 years of marriage before their separation at death. Happy All Saints' Day, happy Halloween, and happy All Souls' Day. And may you never forget that no matter how bleak things might seem, every death has a resurrection.